The first question is, well, who sets your role? And then the second question is, who's pulling your strings? You have to act out your ideals to some degree, right? And you also have to formulate a avatar of yourself in some sense that's a mediator between you and other people in casual social encounters. You need this functional shell, but the problem arises when that functional shell is all that there is, and then the real person underneath is just desperate and unhappy because nothing of what's being acted out reflects a true underlying reality. So you've put on this front that is there to make you popular and sexy and desirable and to mask from yourself your own inadequacies. You've put that on yourself in an attempt, in some ways, to deliver to people what they want, or more accurately, to look as though you're delivering to people what they want. It's no substitute for the real thing, and it turns out that not only is what we want from each other the real thing, but that's also the adventure of your life.
That's the thing about being an individual. It's the thing that Western civilization has always recognized, that as an individual, you have a light that you have to bring into the world, and that if you don't bring it into the world is a dimmer place, and that's a bad thing, because when the world is a dim place, it can get very, very, very dark.
If you want to know something about yourself, sit on your bed one night and say to yourself, my life is not everything I want it to be, and perhaps it's not everything that I need it to be. You got to mean this, like you got to be desperate. This is no game, this. You ask yourself, you sit on the bed and say, okay, man, I'm ready to learn something. Like what's one thing I'm doing wrong that I know I'm doing wrong, that I could fix, that I would fix? It's like, you meditate on that, you'll get an answer. It's often something that will point you to small things. Imagine you're in your messy bedroom, and you're sitting on the edge of the bed trying to have an honest dialogue with yourself. And the little voice says, it's pretty disgusting in here. And you think, well, I'm way above such trivial niceties as organizing my room. It's like, well, that's pride. And maybe that's where you start. And that works. That works. You start making those micro improvements, like real micro improvements, real on the ground, actual micro improvements to things that are wrong, you'll improve unbelievably rapidly.
You want to present yourself to the world in a manner that doesn't disgrace you in some sense. That might be a good way to think about it.
Let's say you believe that you're undervalued at work. For example, let's say you're at a dead end in your job. Okay, so I don't find my work meaningful. I'm bringing more value to the table than I'm being compensated for, and that's demoralizing me. I have a bad relationship or a neutral relationship with my boss who doesn't know who I am. I have problems with coworkers. I find the work I do repetitive and boring and without spirit. And it's also not good for you being my boss, because if I'm actually more valuable than is being recognized, then the fact that you're not valuing me properly means that I will become demoralized, I won't work properly, and you won't get the best out of me. All of that needs to be differentiated, right, and analyzed in detail. This isn't like next week's enterprise, man. This is your life. And what you should seriously consider doing is finding another job. Do you have your resume or CV in order? Let's go through it. Let's at least update it. Let's look where the holes are. Let's look at where the inadequacies are as far as you're concerned. Maybe you're just too guilty and ashamed and self-conscious and anxious, and you're looking at your resume more critically than someone else would. And maybe there's some holes that you need to rectify. Even if you can't be fully educated, you could be taking some courses online. And so when you went to a new job interview and they said, what about this hole? You'd say, well, I came to terms with that 6 months ago, and in an effort to rectify it, I'm taking the following courses, and here's my plan for completion. That's a really good answer. That's the kind of answer that, in all likelihood, will cement your candidacy for the position. And anyone with any sense who's interviewing will accept that as an indication that although you're not perfect, and who is, that you have a good plan and that you've thought it through. Now, what you do is apply for 10 jobs. You don't have to take them. But maybe you have to go to an interview or 2 or 3 or 4, and maybe there's a bunch of opportunities out there for you that you didn't even know about, when you're doubtful, say you're trapped, you ask yourself, well, why am I trapped? And that's a hard question, right? Because some of it's your own inadequacy. So even if it's unfair, even if you're hemmed in for any number of reasons, what you can do to begin with is every bloody thing you possibly can do to put yourself in the most virtuous and powerful negotiating position possible.
It's not just that you should because it would be better for you. You actually have a moral obligation to do that, I think.
People aren't taught this sort of thing ever, really. They're not taught how to negotiate. They're not taught how to goal set. You have to think like a snake in some sense. To do that, you got to get the details right. You have to be prepared to bite, and you have to have your eyes on the prize. A resilient person is capable of standing up to things in the face of fear and moving forward voluntarily, convinced of their own competence and ability to prevail. A major part of life and its meaning is the challenge that comes with confronting difficulties.
Despite the fact that you're not all that you could be, the proper attitude to have towards yourself is the attitude that you would have towards someone that you genuinely cared for. Imagine you had a child that you really cared for, and someone said, well, people will treat this child exactly like you want them to, but you have to figure out what that is. And you don't want everyone just to be nice to him, you want people to challenge him, and you want people to discipline him, and you want people to tell him when he's wrong. It's like, you don't just want everyone to be nice. That's pathetic. It's pathetic. There's no challenge in that. Everyone wants to be treated as if they have free will, and as if they confront potential, and as if they're capable of making moral choices, and that they should be rewarded when they do things right and perhaps punished when they do things wrong. Everyone wants that, and everyone knows it.
We're built to walk uphill. And when you reach the pinnacle of the hill, you want to stop and appreciate the vision, but the next thing you want is a higher hill in the distance. It's from the uphill climb that we derive our value, and I mean this technically. You want a goal that you can never attain, right? So you can always move closer to the goal that recedes as you move towards it. You want them to be above everything you're doing so you can continually move towards something that's more sublime and better. As you pursue that goal, you put yourself together and your life does get better and richer and more abundant. You want a horizon of ever-expanding possibility. That's what you are. You're here to live, not to sleep. What do you want to be, a giant infant with a gold bottle? You never have to do anything but lay in your back and suck? No, you want to be like an active warrior moving uphill with your sword in hand. And that's dynamic, that's exciting. And that's why so many young men disappear into video games. That's all acted out in the video game. You aim to climb uphill to the highest peak you can possibly envision. And that's better than happiness. When you listen to a profound piece of music, one that sort of spans the whole emotional experience, it's not happy. Happy is elevator music, and probably you just shouldn't listen to that at all. It doesn't have that deep sense of awe and horror, I would say, that is characteristic of the best of all music. There's this admission of a deep suffering at the same time as you get the beautiful transcendence of the music. It's not a trivial thing, but that's better than happiness. And maybe if you're lucky while you're pursuing that and while you're immersed in it, you get to be happy. It really is a gift. And it comes upon you unexpectedly, your happiness. And you should fall on your knees and be grateful for that when it happens.
And so the best way to present yourself is to stand up forthrightly and to stretch out, and to occupy some space, and you make yourself sort of vulnerable by doing that because you open up the front of your body, right? But it's a sign of confidence, and that way people are most likely to give you the benefit of the doubt.
And then it turns out that people will actually follow along.